I'm Deepak Chopra, and welcome to our program with luminaries, influencers, sages, scientists, and geniuses. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking to Sampath G, who is a Vedic scholar, Sanskrit scholar, and he was introduced to me by Eddie Stern, who's a yoga master himself and colleague and also teacher. And I'm going to ask Eddie to introduce Sampath and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you, Deepak Ji. So it's a pleasure to be here with you both. Dr. Sampadananda Mishra is from Orissa. He comes from a village where Sanskrit is spoken as their native tongue, so he grew up in a household speaking Sanskrit, which is extremely rare, even for India. In 1993, he came to the Sri Aurobindo ashram, where he worked until 2021, and a large part of his work there was the spreading of Sanskrit knowledge. This included heading the library and doing a lot of work with education and children, conversational Sanskrit, the translation and production of texts in app form and otherwise. And right now he is the director of the Department for Human Sciences at the Rishihood University, which is in Delhi. And this is a department of the university that is looking at all aspects of human consciousness on all different levels from all different perspectives. So he has a voluminous knowledge. He has some very unique specialities in terms of Indian knowledge systems. And I'm delighted to be here today to introduce him. And he's been giving lectures in the temple, and he's giving lectures around America right now. He is my Sanskrit teacher, and I very much look forward to this conversation. So I'll pass it over to the two of you, and Dr. Sampadananda Ji, the floor is yours.
Sampadananda Ji, we have a lot to discuss. As you know, the Foundation, which is a non-profit, is soon going to be opening a center in New Delhi, and I hope to learn a lot from you and collaborate with you. And you have a lot to offer, and this resurrection of knowledge, which is so desperately needed in what I think is slowly becoming an insane world, hypnotized by the superstition of materialism. So I know you have a lot to offer, but today let's talk about the topic we just spoke about, which has to do with memory, how in 1999 you held a convention, and where you have taken that whole knowledge of memory, literally, which challenges every conventional view we have of knowledge being in the brain rather than knowledge being structured in consciousness. So share a little bit about your history and then talk about what we agreed would be the topic.
Okay, so first of all, many thanks for this conversation, and I also thank Eddie for this arrangement and his introduction. So I come from a background where I grew up listening Sanskrit poetry in my family, especially from my grandfather. And I have fallen in love with this language because of its rhythm, because of the purity of the vibration of its sound. And I have seen that how this language has helped immensely in strengthening the inner faculties like concentration, memory, focus, observation, imagination. So it happens naturally. So growing up, I came in contact with a lot of amazing components, amazing stories, amazing personalities, amazing art forms which existed in India. And one of these art forms is Avadhana Kala. I myself, though I was familiar with the word, but never had any opportunity to know the details, the nitty-gritties of Avadhana Kala, which is an age-old art in India. But in the year 1999, I was instrumental in organizing one Ashta Avadhana program. It's a eightfold concentration program where for the first time I experienced what is this Avadhana Kala. And then the feeling is that as long as one has not seen the Avadhan Kala, one doesn't believe that such things are possible. Even after watching, one doesn't believe one's own eyes that, oh, this has happened in front of my eyes. So, what is Avadhan Kala? So, it involves memory, it involves creativity, it involves all kinds of poetic ability, but especially the memory part. If you look at the capability of the power of retention and recollection of the Avadhanis, the master performers, so it is unbelievable how they have developed such kind of memory. And most of the Avadhanis, when we ask them, interview them, they also agree with me that this is the language, the discipline, the brahmacharya which they follow as a part of their sadhana helps immensely in strengthening these inner faculties. So, in Avadhan Kala, there are various kinds of art forms, but memory is at the center. So, to give you a little, example, a very recent example, in the month of May this year, 1st of May, I went to Mumbai to see one Sahasra Avadhan, because I had never experienced, seeing a Sahasra Avadhani answering 1000 questions which are asked to him, and the great memory power that he has. So he's a young 24-year-old Jain monk by the name Ajita Chandra Sagara. He has done his doctorate also at this young age. So it's Dr. Ajita Chandra Sagara. So I went to Mumbai to see the convention hall was filled in with 8 to 10,000 people physically and another 5-6,000 people watching online. And he came with his guru Nayachandra Sagarji, sat, and morning 8:30, starting from morning 8:30 till 2:30, 1,000 people, batch by batch, came in front of him, posed various kinds of challenges, questions, to test his Shravana Indriya, the hearing sense organ, Darshana Indriya, the seeing part, and Sparsha Indriya, the touch part, and his intellect. He's like posing various kinds of mathematical puzzles, magic squares, his poetic ability, his power of memory. Someone would come and then ask him that I have a verse in my mind which has 64 syllables, but the 30th syllable is this. Then after some, then he will say the 50th syllable is this, second syllable is this. In a very disorderly manner, he will complete all the syllables, and then the Muni keeps it in his mind, rearranges until at the end of the performance, what was the verse in the mind of the person. Amazing memory. So it's not just memory also has to be aligned with a lot of other creative aspects of the mind. So in front of me, it happened from 8:30 to 2:30, 1,000 people posed questions, and 3:30, he started answering those questions one by one. He said, like, the first batch of people came, they showed me these flags in this order. This was the magic square, these were the mathematical puzzles, this was the verse, and someone even said, recited a particular verse from a particular text. Then he was supposed to recite the previous 25 verses of the verse which was recited. He did that. So out of 1000, he just forgot 4 questions. And then he said, okay, now I am not answering, but I will try to remember and then tell. Once the performance was over, he answered all the questions. Then he said, okay, I had forgotten question number 645. This is the answer. Then the 889. So this is the answer. So this is called the Avadhana Kala. It happens in various forms. So I have been doing my research into Avadhana Kala, meeting a lot of Avadhanis, getting into the nitty-gritties of this art form, and trying to bring it to life and classroom. So then all the different principles which are working behind in the formation of an Avadhani, in the making of an Avadhani. So how do we translate it into practical life and bring it to the children so that they can develop the simultaneous concentration ability in them? So this in brief is my experience with Avadhana Kala, an age-old art which exists in India. Mostly it is prevalent in Andhra Pradesh. The East Godavari district is the hub of Avadhanis. So a lot of Avadhanis doing in Sanskritam, in Telugu can be found in East Godavari district. And to some extent you find it in Karnataka, it happens in Kannada, and a lot of Jain monks. So there is a specific program, and you find in the Jain scriptures, especially in the Nandi Sutras and various other scriptures in the Jain tradition. So they do practice this avadhana and the development of the mental faculties in a very systematic manner. So there are a lot of activities which can be brought into the classroom situation to train the young minds in the avadhana kala. So there is a lot to say about this. It's a thing, but this in brief is a little introduction to.
You gave me a couple of examples earlier, where through eye movements you can communicate memory, or you can do it through touch. You mentioned these indriyas, sparsh, and auditory and eye movements. Can you share some examples that you shared with me earlier?
So, when we look at the various types of avadhanam, so there is smriti avadhana, which is purely connected with memory. Say, for example, there is Gita avadhan. So, the master performer has the entire verse of the Gita in his mind. If you ask him a number, a chapter, a particular word, the position of it, recite 25 verses prior to a particular word or containing this word, so he will be able to bring it out from his memory and deliver. Then there is the prajna avadhana, where little bit of logistics, one has to be very tactful and very keenly observing. Then there is the Pratibha Avadhana, where one's poetic ability, the ability of the power of expression, and all these things at work. So the Prajna Avadhana has the art forms like Ghanta Avadhana, Netra Avadhana, Shatakalasha Avadhana, Angulya Avadhana, Bhuja Avadhana, Trina Avadhana. So I myself have experienced two such avadhanam. One is Netra Avadhana, one is Ghanta Avadhana. What happens in these two types? There are two people. Both of them are equally talented, and they are also, during the performance, one person becomes the performer, another person becomes the observer. So the performer, from the audience, someone can send a message, whatever the language may be. It can be French, Italian, Spanish, Sanskrit, Marathi, Bangla, English, any language. Just write something in a script with which the performer is familiar. So the audience sends the message written on a paper. So the performer will look at the paper and then sounds the bell at different positions, like a steel plate with a spoon. So he will be hitting at different places with different intensity, and the observer will be observing the positions of these sounds where from he is striking, and then the observer is able to translate or decode and then say what is the message written on that paper.
Sampaji, you mentioned Ghanta Avadhan. Then there's something called Netra Avadhan. Do you have to say anything more about Ghanta Avadhan, or you?
So Ghanta Avadhan is all about the Ghanta, and there are, not many Ghanta Avadhanis. So we
So
could,
what is being translated is the vibration of sound into language. Is that so? And the frequency,
the
and
frequency of
and the
phonics.
what
Yeah.
else?
So, like suppose the person hits at a particular place, so it means a particular phoneme. Okay. So if it is done with this intensity at this position, it means a combination of two. Okay. So sustaining like the long, short. Okay. So there is a grammar which by which they are trained and they translate it like this. So I myself had given to the performer Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and it was exactly translated as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam by the observer.
Very good.
Similarly, you have another avadhanam called Netra Avadhanam. In Ghanta Avadhanam, Ghanta is the instrument through which the message is conveyed. So in Netra Avadhana, it is through the eye movements. So the message is conveyed to the observer. So the observer with rapt attention has to look at the performer. So if the observer misses a single movement, he will miss the whole message. So with that kind of careful attention, which is exactly the meaning of the word avadhanam, so the observer looks at the performer's eye movement and then translates the message. So similarly, you have a Anguli Avadhana, so it can be, or Hasta Chalani, through the hand movements, finger movements. There is a Chotika Avadhana, snapping. So through snapping also it is conveyed. So these are the beautiful things that we have kept alive in the tradition, but very rarely one encounters such avadhanis. And there are master avadhanis who are now training the young avadhanis. So as a part of my research at the Center for Human Sciences in Rishihood University, supported by Government of India, so I have taken up this project on Avadhan Kala. So as a part of that project, we did a confluence of avadhanis. So we brought 10 rare avadhanis together in Avadhana Sangama part 1, where they displayed their talent. And then after that, in Avadhana Sangam 2 and 3, we called the master avadhanis to train the young minds. And then those trained, like for 2 days, 3 days, they got the basic training and they also performed. You look at it, within 2 days, what they performed was unbelievable. So it is scalable also. The master of Adhanis can train the young minds and the tradition can be kept alive. So this was our, like a part of our research, and we continue doing, recovering this art, discovering the rare avadhanis, and then bringing them and creating platform them, and based on that creating modules, so then the young minds can be trained and this art form can continue to live.
Sampaji, let me ask you the following question. I think all of Vedic literature, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Kalidas, all these people in the classics and the Smritis, but also Ayurveda, Stapatya Ved, Gandharva Ved, etc. These disciplines are in Nata Shastra. All these disciplines, they are taught from guru to disciple through recitation, through basically verses. Now, all the Vedic literature is in verses, and I've seen extraordinary memories where people can recite the entire Bhagavad Gita or even Bhagavad or Sushruta or any of the texts. So, according to current science, memory is in the brain. But according to Vedic science, memory is in consciousness. And consciousness is not in space time. Consciousness is non local and beyond space and time. And that is the source of all memory. And even after death, when we die, the residue of memory remains in what I would call in English the Akashic field or the Akashic record, as our sanskara, as the record of our karma, as vasanas, which then recycles or reincarnates as a physical process. So let's break this down. Memory is not in the brain, number one. Number two, it's a consciousness, non-local, Brahman, Atman, and Jiva. And then that memory also is, if you go backwards, trace it all the way back, the memories in the womb of a mother, memory is in the earth, as you mentioned, but even going beyond that, the earth itself is a memory in cosmic consciousness. Can you break it down for those who are listening? Because this challenges the entire physicalist paradigm of modern science. Even the brain is a memory, isn't it?
Sure,
Please,
sure.
please break it down for us.
It's a very pertinent question. And so I will just start it from what you mentioned about the Vedas, Upanishads, Gita, Charak, Sushrut, Vagbhatta, and various other texts, huge texts, which are written in poetry. And you will be amazed to know even dictionaries are written in poetry. Mathematics is written in poetry. Physics is in poetry. Chemistry is in poetry. So why poetry? So maximum number of texts in Sanskrit belonging to every branch of knowledge is in poetry. So poetry has that rhythm. And this anything which is cast into a rhythmic mold becomes sustainable. It creates that, like memory. It's easy to memorize. It doesn't mean that prose passages are not easy to remember, because there are Brahmana Granthas which are in prose, huge Brahmana Granthas, that also the oral tradition in the Gurukulas are kept in memory. But what matters, even in Sanskrit, you read a prose, it sounds like poetry. The language design is such that it cannot be without rhythm. Even a single word in Sanskrit has that rhythm. So it is this rhythm, this music, the very design of the language has something within it which helps the memory, and which helps memorization, which makes things to be kept in memory easily. So this is one thing which I wanted to highlight as a beauty and the charm and the importance and significance of the language in which all the shastras which have been given to us. The second thing what you asked is about the memory and the consciousness. So the shastra, Veda, Vedanta, Tantra, Darshana, so all the shastras, do they agree that achaitanyam na vidyate? So there is nothing in this creation which is devoid of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. So like the Saptashati Chandi says, Ya Devi Sarva Bhutesu Chetanitya Bhidhiyate Namastasya 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 Namo Nama. The Devi, who is the very Chetana, very consciousness in everything. Sarva Bhuta includes everything. Includes everything. The conscious, unconscious, inert, everything is included in Sarva Bhuta. Anything which has manifest is in consciousness. As you said, like consciousness is something which transcends. And also like we are using for convenience the word consciousness in English to translate Chetana or Chit. But it's the word consciousness is not a complete word to give a complete knowledge about Chetana. So this being said, that every aspect of the creation, anything which has manifest, has a consciousness in it, involved in it, and if there is a consciousness involved in it, there is memory. So in that sense, the earth has its memory. At a physical level, we have the memory. So we call it like the consciousness in the 5 different appearances of its own. like there is a physical consciousness concerned with the matter, concerned with anna. So that physical has its memory. So there is a pranic level of the consciousness. It has its own memory connected. Like when it comes to the human being, it connects the emotional, sensational being. So there is a mental, psychological, the manas. So like at the individual level, we have the individual mind. There is a cosmic mind. So as you mentioned about the individual memory and the cosmic memory, in the cosmic consciousness, there is the cosmic memory. So which, like ever since the creation came, so everything that has happened in this creation, it is there very much in that record, that cosmos. So that is why, like every sound, that's why the Veda is called apaurushaya, that no one composes. Even our ideas also do not belong to us, they come from a different plane. We claim that, okay, it's my idea, but in a true sense, the ideas come from somewhere else. It doesn't belong to anyone. So it may be manifesting through me because there is certain preparation in me, in someone, where the ideas occur or the manifest. The same way the Veda mantras are recovered. The moment we think something, the moment a movement happens, whether at the physical level, at the pranic level, or at the mental psychological level, it creates a spanda, it creates a vibration. And every vibration is permanent, it remains good or bad. That's why our Vedic rishis said, never think ill of anyone. Ano bhadra kratavu yantu vishwata. Always let there be noble thoughts, noble ideas, good vibration. With goodwill we live, no ill will, because everything creates a vibration and it is permanent. It is there, absorbed in this cosmic record or akashic record. And whoever is prepared for that or invoking a certain vibration, that vibration manifests, gets linked with that vibration. That's how the ideas occur, that's how the mantras manifest in the rishis consciousness. So this is what is the cosmic memory which keeps everything in itself. So, and it never gets filled up with, it is not overfilled with the ideas or the vibrations or anything. So it can take everything into its domain and then keep it. That's why it is called purna, it's called ananta, it's unending, it's full.
Infinite.
Without
Infinite.
infinite, ananta. So even it is said like you take the purna out of it, what remains is purna, it's full. Okay.
Let me
So
ask you one or two questions, and then please we'll explore what you said as well. So what we call genes, genetic memory, is literally the symbolic representation of the memory of our ancestors. Would you say that? And that as genetic memory, every cell in my body is full of, has a gene. That gene is the memory of my ancestors' experiences. Would you say that?
yes, it gets carried forward. Yes. So
And,
every cell has its own memory. So it gets carried forward. So
and
therefore,
okay.
like in Upanishad, you have a beautiful mantra which says, like Om Kratosmara, Krutam Smara, Kratosmara, Krutam Smara. So reminding us that, like how the soul travels lives after lives, carrying the memories of each life.
Okay, so say a little bit for people who don't understand the concept of sanskara, vasana, karma, and reincarnation.
So when we say sanskara, anything that repeat in a very simple language, anything that we do repeatedly. Suppose there is a particular thought, we are allowing it to happen. We are following a particular, emotion. Anything that we're happening, and it's happening repeatedly, so it becomes imprinted in the consciousness.
Jit.
So that becomes our sanskara, and that builds the character in us. So if that what is getting repeated, what is getting imprinted, if it is good, then it builds a good character. If it is not good, it doesn't build a good character. So this is where we go on because of our own thoughts, because of our own way of living, the way we think, what we think, how we think, what happens, what do we allow in our consciousness. So that's how our sanskaras are built up, our charitra. And whatever is our charitra, so accordingly we perform. Our action becomes that. And whatever is our action, so it becomes our destiny. So this is how it goes on, and then it gets carried forward in lives after lives, okay, carrying those memories. So if we have performed all the times not good works, so not a good character gets carried forward, so it remains in the consciousness itself. So that is how we yield our karmic fruits, karmic results. So then the destiny becomes like that. So this is the process by which the karma plays its own role.
So these days, there's a lot of literature, uh, anecdotal and published, on the survival of consciousness after death. But I think if we go a little deeper into this question, consciousness is neither born nor does it die. It's just the recycling of memory and desire and tendencies and habits that recycles as a physical form. So the question came up, what is the difference between memory and sanskar?
Yeah. So, whatever happens in the consciousness, like we think, we do something, an impression is created, an imprint is created. So, that's what is our sanskar. And memory becomes a device to recollect, okay, remember what has been imprinted or what event has taken place. So it connects us with the event. So it's a device. So memory is a device, a process by which the recollection happens.
Yeah, what is it that recollects? Who recollects? What recollects?
Like when we come to the mind aspect, don't you think it is the sense mind which has the memory as one of its powers, which links and then which uh, gets connected with what has happened and what is retained, because retention and recollection are the two powers of the memory, the dharana, grahana, and dharana.
Is the memory or the residue of the memory, because it's in consciousness, is it outside of space-time?
It is outside of the space, because see, consciousness doesn't get uh, like in its pure sense, it is beyond the time and space. It is, like as it is called, the description of a Brahman, which is given in a sense that consciousness is also like Brahman, Prajnanam Brahma, say. So it is Bhuvanatita, it is beyond the Bhuvana, it is Kalatita, it is beyond the time, yet it is in time for its play, for its manifestation. So the infinite itself makes itself finite for the purpose of creation. And this is a very mesmerizing act, that the immeasurable becomes measured by a mechanism of making oneself finite. From the infinite state, the infinite Brahman becomes finite. From its immeasurable state, it becomes measured. And this finiting mechanism, measuring mechanism, is what is known as Maya. So the word Maya comes from the root sound ma, means to measure. Okay, so this is a very difficult task, or a task which one cannot even imagine how to do. So it is the way it is described in the Shastra. Once the Devi is worshipped as Aghatana Ghatana Patiyasi, the Devi who makes the impossible possible. This impossible act of measuring the immeasurable, it happens by the Brahman itself, because it has infinite power. It creates a mechanism out of itself, makes itself finite, and then operates in this finite world.
I
But it
once,
is not attached to it. It can again go beyond, wrap up everything, and then becomes nothing.
I once read that memory, maya, matra, matrika, measurement, meter, time, music, mathematics is all same,
Uh,
it's all one. And so, would you agree with that? I think that's what you're saying.
yeah, it is the sound ma.
Mm.
Like if we look at, for example, like in the Rishi tradition, so which has given a lot of importance to the sound, because these sounds that we have, the fundamental sounds which are captured in the Varnamala, the fundamental sounds not just of the humanity, but the fundamental sounds of the cosmos. These are cosmic sounds. So they reverberate in the human consciousness, also create the same cosmic sense when we become aware of our divine origin. And when one becomes aware of one's own divine origin, can remember the beautiful moments, the progressive moments, like there are in life some moments which marks a milestone that has been achieved. Okay, so and this is what is remembered by the psychic entity of each individual. So when we talk about, like, we just before we took a break, you had mentioned about the reincarnation, that how things are remembered. So when one departs from the life and takes another life, or another life happens, it is not what the mind has done is remembered, because the mind becomes one with the mental world. Okay, it dissolves there. The pranic satta, the pranic existence, becomes dissolved in the pranic world. The physical being becomes dissolved in the pancha mahabhuta. So, what gets carried forward is the evolving soul, a spark from that, the flame, the Brahman, the Jivatman, which becomes individualized in each individual. That evolving soul, a little spark, which must evolve again to become the flame. Okay. So it is that what is called psychic entity, which should become in its evolution the psychic being, a divine spark, growing and becoming the divine flame and attaining to Purnatva. Attaining to Purnatva means it becomes exactly like the Purna. Okay, a full-fledged flame. It is that psychic being. So I'm coming from the school of Sri Aurobindo, whatever little I have learned from Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. So he says that it is that psychic being which has the memory of the essence of the life, not all the nitty-gritties, which house I lived, what kind of position I held. Those kind of memories are not remembered by the psychic being. It retains the essence of one life, the greatest moments, the milestones, and then again in the next life it prepares the mind accordingly. Okay. So carrying forward this essence, the essence of one life to the other life, and then builds upon it. So it is a progressive journey which happens, lives after lives. So again, building upon the essence of life, the milestones, the progression that has taken place. So this is how the journey goes on.
There's a Sanskrit word, pragya aparadha, the mistake of the intellect, which says, I am this body, or I am this mind, or I am this personality. And it is the cause of all suffering. And liberation from suffering is correcting this aparad.
Yes.
And you say, speak to that.
See, what makes aparadha is not our inmost being. It is the outer, projected, ego driven, desire driven self, which doesn't have the contact with the inmost being, which keeps erring, which does all the mistakes. So, therefore, the tradition says that instead of getting fully engaged with this outer ego driven, desire driven self, egoistic self, turn inward, build your connect with the inmost being. Then you become free from all the limitations of the different parts of the being, instrumentations. Unless and until we have that connect with the psychic entity, that divine spark, that divine origin, that divinity, which is secret in the secret of the heart, the Hrud Guha, they call it, the secret cave of the heart, that flame is burning, Angushta Matra Purusha, Jyotiriva, Adhumaka. So it means not bigger than the size of a thumb, this flame, unwavering flame. Adhumaka, smokeless, unwavering flame, which is secretly burning in the cave of the heart. Become aware of that. Build your contact with that. Bring it to the front to lead the entire life, the physical, vital, and mental. Till we have that connect with the inmost being, we are led by the mind. Then Manas becomes Prana Sharira Neta, is the leader of Prana and Sharira. The way it manipulates the pranic and physical being, so we do it. And then mind, because of its limitation, because of its own Swabhava and Prabhava, it misleads. It has all the possibilities of misleading. Only psychic doesn't mislead.
This flame, the size of a thumb, if I keep this awareness of this flame in my heart, would that be a useful meditation?
Can be, can be. Seeing the flame and
Yes.
contemplating on it, bringing it to the imagination, to the seeing it through the inner eye can be a beautiful meditation.
So finally, because we have some time limitation on here, um, you know, right now in the scientific world, there are two open questions. There are many open questions, but two that come up all the time. Number one is, what is the universe made of? Number two is, what is the biological basis of consciousness? And people are struggling everywhere in the world to answer these questions mathematically through quantum physics, etc., etc. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. But from what you're saying, there is no hard problem. Matter does not produce consciousness. Matter is just an appearance of consciousness, Brahman, Brahmand, and what we human beings call physical matter is a human name given to a combination of sensations, sensory experiences, cognitive ideas, etc. And therefore, there is only consciousness having an experience, and we are part of that. Atman is Brahman, and Jiva is a modified form of that. And, before we close, I just want to mention that Schrödinger was the father of quantum mechanics. Everything in quantum mechanics is one equation, Schrödinger's equation. You can explain every manifestation in the universe mathematically. And Schrödinger, towards the end of his life, actually wrote a book called What is Life? And he likened Atman to what he calls the wave function of infinite possibilities. Do you have any comments? First of all, does matter produce consciousness, which is the scientific paradigm that science is struggling with? And we'll close with that.
So it's a progressive journey. Like the consciousness appears in the form of matter and then it keeps evolving. Like It goes on transcending each limitation and then again becomes one with itself. So from the matter, then you have the life, then the mind, then the supermind, okay, the super consciousness. There is a progressive journey which happens, and then at each step there is a transcendence. So the problem, the root cause of all our problems is these binaries. So as long as we are entangled with the binary system, the dualities, there is no solution to any kind of problem, lasting solution. So the lasting solution, as the Vedic, Vedantic, Tantric tradition, the spiritual tradition of Bharat has seen, that transcending the binaries, becoming one, ekatva and samatva are the solution to all our crises, and it is a progressive journey which moves on and on and on, and there is no end to it. The Veda says, Yat sanoho sanu maruhat. So attaining to peaks after peaks. So each peak is seen as a perfection, as a Satya Yuga. And once one attains to one peak, the peak higher than that, a perfection, a greater perfection, a greater Satya, is waiting to be realized. And there is no direct flight from peak to peak. One has to go through all the ups and downs in order to attain to the peak higher than the peak where one is. And then once one attains to that, again another higher peak. So yat sanu sanu maruhat, attaining to peaks after peaks, this life goes on. So that's what I can say.
This has been a very enlightening conversation. I look forward to more conversations with you and learning from you and expanding the awareness of your work and all the great people that you work with in our center in Delhi, soon to be announced. I'm very grateful that you joined me for this conversation. I pay homage to you and all the lineage of gurus throughout the ages. So, Jai Gurudev, and thank you very much.